Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'm going to start it off in Jeremiah 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Edom. And the biblical Edomites are known today as these so-called white people, so-called Caucasians, Americans, Europeans, Russians, etc., etc. And his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman, which is also a tribe of the Edomites. They would be the Germans today. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And that least of the flock is also speaking about Edomites, specifically of the tribe of Amalek, which the Amalekites today are the 1948ers or the JOOs, who currently inhabit the Holy Land and who currently are, the top tribe of the Edomites and really the ones, that are receiving that blessing of the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven that Esau received in Genesis chapter 27. Because at the top of all these different, industries and resources and banking, entertainment, even in these governments, you have the Amalekites pulling the strings. And as I said, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. A reason they're known as the least of the flock is when you look at these, and they'll say it themselves, these Amalekites are a global minority. And for the most part, before they got the Holy Land into their possession, what did they do? They were communities, minority communities in different countries that, would do their thing, and those countries would kick them out, appropriately. But, what this is ultimately talking about is those Amalekite Edomites, the 1948ers over in the Holy Land, doing something to foment, a war against Iran and stir up tensions in the Middle East, which is really Western Asia, which is going to play into the bigger battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon in Joel chapter 3. And they're going to draw out the United States of America mainly in on their side. And that's the main point I wanted to hearken on, is because the United States of America and Donald Trump is nothing more than a puppet for the 1948ers, a prostitute for them at that. And whenever those 1948ers tell America to jump, America gets on their knees with their tongue out and says, "How high?" And I opened up the video with this verse, to preface this clip from the brother Arrows of Indignation 144's YouTube channel titled, "Hey Esau, are you still down with Trump and MAGA after this news? Inquiring minds would like to know," just to show how much of a bitch America and especially Trump is to those 1948ers. Here you have, Americans working paycheck to paycheck, dealing with the cost of living crisis and inflation, having an ever-increasing amount of taxes taken out of their paychecks, while the majority of those taxes and a lot of these benefits and aid that America sends goes to those 1948ers, who are actually the biggest welfare recipients out there. And like I said, when those 1948ers, kick off, that war against Iran, which is going to play into the bigger battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, America is going to be drawn in on their side, right into the slaughter with them. But before I play this clip, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
some big news right now. The Trump administration is planning on withholding disaster aid funding for states and cities that boycott Israel. According to Reuters, U.S. states and cities that boycott Israeli companies will be denied federal aid for natural disaster preparedness. In new terms and conditions in FEMA grants, they say, quote, conditions require that they certify they will not sever commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies to qualify for funding. This requirement applies to at least $1.9 billion that states rely on to cover search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries, and backup power systems, among other expenses. The Department of Homeland Security back in April says that any city or state boycotting Israel is prohibited from receiving grant funds. What's stunning about this policy is that I'm not sure there is another policy similar to it, meaning if you boycott, for example, France, or if you boycott Ukraine, or if you boycott Taiwan, you may not be eligible for disaster relief funding. If I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments, but I can't find one.
This just came out minutes ago, and I can't believe what I'm reading. Trump administration just announced minutes ago they will be withholding natural disaster relief funds to states and cities that boycott Israel. If you are a state that boycotts Israel, the federal government will give a big F you and not give funds to prepare for natural disasters that could kill millions of Americans. Trump administration said states and...
It's so much for America first. And, information came out that about a couple of years ago, old DJ Trump converted to 1948erism again. Trump especially, he's just the most out and open about it. In America, nothing more than prostitutes to the pimp that is, the Amalekites. And as we can see, Trump is planning on blocking, funding and disaster relief aid to states that plan on boycotting the 1948ers.
Cities will not receive funds to prepare for natural disasters if they choose to boycott Israeli companies. Know that this was something already going on in Texas, but this is now a national law. States must certify that they will not cut off commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies to receive the money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. If you read that and you don't see that the foreign entanglement of America with Israel is so strong that it's analogous to being an occupied government, this is crazy.
America first, right, MAGA? Isn't that what you guys always say? The alleged president, Donald Trump, is putting America first? Then why don't you explain to me why it is that the alleged president, Donald Trump, is threatening to withhold natural disaster relief funds to any state or to any city that boycotts Israel? Silence, huh? Crickets. When on earth is it okay for our sitting president to put the priorities of another country before Americans' lives? So we send them all this money, and now we're going to withhold emergency federal funds from any state or from any city that decides they want to boycott Israel? So another country is more important to the alleged president Donald Trump? Another country far outweighs the American citizen. Is this what you've...
And hey, this is a part of one of the blessings that Esau received. Well, the Amalekites, who are Edomites, received, that they would be the first of the nations, meaning they would be at the head of everything, and pretty much everything, in society, especially in these Western countries, would be catered towards their needs. This is Numbers chapter 24. I'm going to start at verse 17. And this is when the Moabite, or the so-called Chinese man named Balaam, prophesied of, Israel ruling in the kingdom of heaven. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. And that star and scepter, of Jacob rising out of Israel is speaking of the Messiah, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, but whose true name is Yahushua, and shall smite the corners of Moab, the so-called Chinese, and destroy all the children of Sheth. And Edom shall be a possession, Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. because when the Israelites, after Yahushua makes the second coming, and beginning with the elect of the nation of Israel, when the kingdom of heaven is being established, all you heathen nations, especially you Edomites, are going into slavery to build up the kingdom of heaven for the first 1,000 years of it. Verse 19, out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. Now here's the main point. Verse 20, and when he looked on Amalek, which are the JOOs, the small hats, the 1948ers, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, meaning they would be at the head of everything, whether seen or unseen, and really, receive the resources and the goods from all these different nations. Hence why, as we're seeing in that video, Donald Trump is planning on cutting funding to states that want to boycott, the 1948ers. And as a whole, America has always had a 1948er first mindset. You can go back and find that speech of Benjamin Netanyahu, Benjamin Melkowski, always talking about all these different threats in the Middle East towards America. Saddam Hussein, you had Al-Qaeda. He even mentioned that, the World Trade Centers would be taken down if Islamic extremism wasn't taken out. And then what did you have? Different incidences take place to where it was the U.S. military, not the IDF, go in and fight those wars and lose those soldiers and lead to the deaths of hundreds of thousands to millions of people. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever, along with the rest of his nation. Because after the first 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven, every single Edomite, man, woman, child, young and old, are going to be gathered up and permanently culled from this planet by fire. And when you read in the book of Exodus, it was the Amalekites that were the first nation that came after Israel, after we came out of Egypt. And in that same book, the Lord said, I will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Hence, when you look at the history of these Amalekite Edomites, when they went into these different countries and, got into banking and started doing usury, or, got at the head of these different businesses, what eventually happened? Those nations, I believe, there's a meme going around, 109 nations kicked them out. And then look at today, with their war in Gaza, you're having the world turn against them.
Voted for? Is this making America great again? Is this making your life better on a day-to-day basis? Please explain to me how this is America first. We're all listening. We would love to hear the reasoning behind this bullshit. And if you are a Trump supporter, do you still support him? Are you supporting this? That another country comes before American citizens?
It's not looking like it's to us. God bless, and God bless America. I guess now you can't even put laws in effect, so they should be good. But with Mike Johnson on his first ever trip to Israel right now and praying at the Wailing Wall for our alliance with Israel to remain strong, I can't help but think who these people's loyalty is actually to, because it's not looking like it's to us. God bless, and God bless America. I guess now you can't even think twice about having any kind of natural disaster in your state if you don't support Israel, because now President Trump says that he is going to withhold $1.9 billion in FEMA money to any state that boycotts Israel. Now, in this move to tie federal disaster relief money to the support or lack of support for Israel, the requirement to support Israel will apply to at least $1.9 billion that states will rely on for search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries, backup power systems, among other expenses. And the Department of Homeland Security, which manages FEMA, says that boycotting Israel is prohibited for individual states and cities receiving federal emergency funds. This is mostly to prevent actual anti-Semitism, and there are 34 states that already have those laws in effect, so they should be good. But with Mike Johnson on his first ever trip to Israel right now and praying at the Wailing Wall for our alliance with Israel to remain strong, I can't help but think who these people's loyalty is actually to, because it's not looking like it's to us. God bless, and God bless America. I guess now you can't even think twice about having any kind of natural disaster in your state if you don't support Israel, because now President Trump says that he is going to...
And, with this and what that big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump had passed, and then all these other different legislations he's been, signing off on. And now, the unemployment and economic numbers are coming out, and you're seeing that there's a, prices are going up and job losses are increasing under Trump's watch. So you're having more and more Americans, even supporters of Donald Trump, starting to complain about, all the things he's doing, which brings us to Isaiah chapter 19, verse 4. And the Egyptians, and this is speaking of the spiritual Egyptians as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8, the United States of America, these Americans, especially these Edomite Americans, and the Egyptians, the Americans, will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, Yahweh of hosts. And that's a very fierce and cruel thing to do to your own citizens, saying, look, if a natural disaster happens, hey, we're going to cut funding to you if your state doesn't, support, the 1948ers and boycotts companies and whatever they're doing.
Cece, what are you doing?
They're talking about coming after people with dual citizenship, Sarah. I have to leave back to Spain.
Whoa.
Yeah, can you believe that? But people in Congress can have dual citizenship.
I didn't know that.
Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, Ron Wyden from Oregon, Benjamin Cardin from Maryland, all Israeli citizenship, by the way. Barbara Boxer from California, Russ Feingold from Wisconsin, Chuck Schumer from New York, Dave Cohen from Tennessee. Do we see a trend?
Oh, that's a lot.
Howard Berman from California, Susan Davis from California, Elliot Engel from New York, Bob Filner from California, Barney Frank from Massachusetts, Gabrielle Giffords from Arizona, Alan Grayson from Florida, Jane Harmon from California, Paul Hodes from New York. Oh, so this many members of Congress are not just American, they're Israeli. Nita Lowy from New York, Jerry Nadler from New York, Jared Paulus from Colorado, Steve Rothman from New Jersey, Jan Schapkowski from Illinois, Adam Schiff from California, Allison Schwartz from Pennsylvania, Brad Sherman from California, all Israelis.
It almost sounds like we're the United States of Israel.
Obviously, Sarah, jeez. Henry Waxman from California.
They're not going to go after them.
Yeah, don't you find it funny now?
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, well, it's pretty obvious who's in charge here.
Straight to the point. Amalek would be the first of the nations, and all, those different politicians that this Edomite looking lady went into just goes to show you how deeply ingrained these Amalekite Edomites are inside the U.S. government. And look up, the different departments and wellness industries that released that jab during 2019 to 2021. At the head of a lot of those were Amalekite Edomites as well. So ultimately, as you can see, voting doesn't matter. Your vote nor your voice ever mattered. At the end of the day, the only thing that talks is money, and everything that walks. And Amalek is the one with all the shekels. But I'm going to close it out with Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, speaking of America, and had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. This American political system, Republicans and Democrats, that give you Americans the illusion of choice, and that you have representatives that actually care about your voice. But as I said, but he spake as a dragon. At the end of the day, these politicians are going to do whatever their donors say. And, who's the biggest donor to these politicians out here, these various Amalekite-related groups. And again, as we just saw, within, your Democratic and Republican parties, you've got dual 1948er American citizens. And where do you think their allegiance lies? Just like with DJ Donald Trump. But that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere, Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can see, we are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And remember what it said back in Numbers 24, verse 20. Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. You Amalekites are about to lose all the shekels, and your entire nation as a whole is about to go into hardcore bondage and slavery. So I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.